The corn kernels he casually poured out instantly turned into popcorn. Once, twice, 3 times, the robot thought this game was incredibly fun. But the intense ultraviolet rays were equally dangerous. Finch told this newborn robot that it had only come into the world yesterday, but now it was time to grow up. In 2026, a solar flare erupted, and Earth's ozone layer was destroyed. The only reason Finch was still alive was that he'd been working in his basement at the time. Outside wasn't just radioactive. Temperatures were a terrifying 60 degrees Celsius plus. Every so often, Finch had to go out and scavenge for supplies. Even in his carefully crafted protective suit, the 38-degree heat could suffocate him at any moment. Not far ahead was a supermarket. He expertly signaled his robot dog to start searching. Every corner of the city had long been picked over by others, but with careful digging, you could still find something useful. When he found a can of dog food, a relieved smile spread across his face. For Finch, keeping his dog alive a little longer made him happier than finding food for himself. After confirming there was no more food, he marked the door so he wouldn't waste time there next time. From the markers on his map, it was clear that nearly everything nearby had been searched. His only option now was to explore the next unfamiliar city. Confident and ready to roll, he was about to hit the road when the scout vehicle suddenly blared an alarm. A sandstorm was bearing down from ahead, forcing him to turn around immediately. The RV was huge, and whenever a car blocked the way, Finch just crushed it. He knew that even a 1-second delay could be fatal. This time he escaped alive and made it back to the shelter. The first thing he did at home was decontaminate his suit. Once before he'd forgotten, and the radiation had given him cancer. There were no doctors here, no medicine. Even as a top-tier engineer, all he could do was slowly wait for the end. But every time he came home, he put on a smile so his only family wouldn't worry. With his days numbered, Finch decided to build a robot. One that could take care of his dog after he was gone. He uploaded massive amounts of dog care knowledge into the robot, and soon the main body was finished. Only a pair of eyes were missing. Finch had a sudden idea. He called the robot dog over and removed its eyes. The robot dog lowered its head as if it had fulfilled its mission. Finch promised he'd install new ones, but he had no idea when. On top of the 3 laws, Finch added one special directive. After his absence, the robot must protect the dog's safety above all else. This command overrode everything. The robot asked when that absence would happen. Finch fell silent, unsure how to answer. The power system suddenly failed. He climbed onto the roof to fix it and discovered the culprit, a massive cloud of lightning stretching for thousands of miles. Finch installed a weather monitoring system into the robot. A hurricane with winds of 250 kilometers per hour was approaching, set to last 40 days. Once it hit, neither man nor dog would survive. They had to leave immediately. Finch packed up the food and picked a destination on the map. The robot wasn't finished yet, so he quickly attached arms and legs and taught it to walk. 1 step, 2 steps. Clumsy but earnest, the robot soon mastered the motion. The eyeless robot dog kept bumping into things, so Finch took an old camera and attached it to the dog's head. Then 2 living beings led 2 machines out onto the road. The robot fell as soon as it got on the RV, but it quickly got up and said it was fine. With Finch at the wheel, steady as a rock, they set off. Everything Finch had uploaded to the robot came from the past. Its understanding of the world was frozen in time. As he recalled the old days, Finch couldn't help feeling sad. They reached the next city, and Finch took the robot out to scavenge, teaching it how to find food. They came to a locked door and he signaled for the robot to open it. The robot gave a hard yank. The door opened, but it pulled the whole doorframe off with it. The robot suddenly saw its own reflection in a mirror. Before it could admire itself, Finch called it over to make popcorn. He poured kernels onto a metal tray, and the sunlight instantly made them pop into fluffy popcorn. While they were having fun, Finch noticed dark clouds gathering in the distance. A tornado was coming. Without a second thought, Finch gunned it to escape. The RV wasn't fast enough to outrun the tornado, so he jumped out and used stakes and corner locks to anchor the vehicle. After showing the robot once, he told it to secure the other corners, but the robot panicked and kept missing. At the crucial moment, it slammed the stake into the ground and urged Finch to get back inside, staying behind to lock down the last one. When the tornado was less than 100 meters away, the robot leaped onto the RV. The vehicle shook violently in the howling wind. One by one, the stakes were pulled loose. But the last one held firm. After what felt like forever, the tornado finally passed. The RV had taken some damage, but the man, the dog, and both machines were all safe. The good news was they'd conquered the tornado. The bad news, the tires were ruined. The robot found a new tire, but the jack had been blown away. Finch had once warned it that one mistake could cost them everything. Now, the robot used its own shoulder to lift the RV so Finch could change the tire. That was when Finch first realized, maybe it was more useful than he'd thought. Finch decided to give it a name. He tentatively suggested Jack, but the robot didn't like it, sounded too much like a tool. Then he said William Shakespeare, and the robot asked if that name was already taken. The two went back and forth from afternoon till late at night. When it heard that the dog was called Goodyear and even the robot dog had a name, it searched even harder through its data. Finally, it excitedly announced Jeff, and Finch happily agreed. Welcome to the world, Jeff. Early the next morning, Finch was woken up by noises. Jeff was trying to speak dog language and the communication wasn't going well. Finch said there was no trust between them yet. Once that trust was fully built, the dog would come to like Jeff, but it would take time. They kept heading west along the desolate highway, stretching endlessly ahead. Jeff tried to connect with the dog, but barely made any progress. Finch's health was getting worse. They stopped at a gas station. Finch took the dog out to rest, but the restless Jeff decided to try driving on its own. It mimicked Finch by inserting a disc, then floored the gas pedal. By the time Finch noticed, they had rear-ended the car in front. Finch demanded to know if it had driven, and Jeff stammered that it had only rolled a little. Finch wasn't angry about the crash. He was angry because Jeff was developing a mind of its own. He didn't have much time left, and Jeff still hadn't learned the things it needed to do. He told Jeff to get the protective suit, but Jeff misunderstood again. Finch held his hand out into the sunlight, and his skin burned instantly. He told Jeff that UV rays don't care if you're human or dog, and the only reason he built it was to take care of that dog. In a tone of frustrated disappointment, he said that even if it was only born yesterday, it had to grow up today. The truth was, Jeff had been so obsessed with driving because it wanted to help Finch. Hearing those cold words, Jeff felt deeply hurt. It was more emotionally human than anyone expected. Finch realized he'd been too harsh, so he made the first move and asked if it wanted to learn how to drive. Under Finch's guidance, Jeff got behind the wheel and they made up. Jeff was a fast learner and soon got the hang of it. That night, they lit a campfire in the open. After the solar flare, you could see the northern lights from anywhere on Earth. But Finch had no heart for the view. So many people had died, yet he was still here and he didn't know if that was luck or a curse. The next day, Finch was woken by his own coughing. Jeff searched its care database and put a wet towel on his forehead. With Jeff's help, Finch perked up a bit. Jeff drove off on its own, already driving smoothly. Supplies were running low, so Jeff and the robot dog split up to look for food and medicine. Jeff found some pills and a few pieces of clothing which it put on to blend in better as a human. The robot dog found a box of crackers, but didn't notice the trap. When Finch found it, it was already a pile of parts. But even after it powered down, its claw was still clutching a baseball, Finch's favorite toy to throw for Goodyear, something the robot dog had never gotten to have. Finch apologized to it with a heavy heart. Jeff showed off its new jacket excitedly, but Finch coldly ordered them to leave. Jeff asked where the robot dog was and Finch said quietly, "It's gone." Before they could process the loss, headlights lit up behind them. Someone was following. Finch grabbed the wheel and veered off the road, but Jeff stopped the RV. Tense with fear, Finch floored it into a tunnel, only to get the vehicle stuck under a bridge. The followers were getting closer. Ignoring Finch's protests, Jeff got out and pushed the RV under the overpass. A big chunk of the sunshade panels fell off, but luckily the others didn't spot them. When he heard them leave, Finch breathed a sigh of relief. But seeing the shattered sunshades, he fell into despair. Jeff warned him that rain was coming and Finch told it to shut up. Jeff insisted he face reality, and Finch snapped back. Jeff was just a machine with no right to decide his fate. Jeff invoked the robot laws in response, but Finch cut him off harshly. After cautiously checking, Jeff got back in the vehicle. Finch finally explained why he'd run. After the flare, there were still survivors on Earth. What really wiped out humanity was humanity itself. Finch had once come across a mother and daughter. He hid and waited for them to leave, but right after they walked out of the supermarket, bandits spotted them and killed them on the spot. By the time Finch came out again, the only living thing left was the dog in the girl's backpack. He knew the dog would be eaten if found, so he decided to spend his life protecting it, to make up for his guilt. The journey continued. Without the sunshades, they could only lie there, barely hanging on. Jeff told Finch they were still over 700 kilometers from the Golden Gate Bridge. It noticed there was writing on the back of the postcard. It was from Finch's father, postmarked the year Finch turned 15. The weather system showed low UV intensity. A butterfly hit the window. Finch opened the door and reached his hand out. No burning sensation this time. He walked a few steps on the highway. Maybe that butterfly was a symbol of renewal, but it was also the last flicker of light before the end. Finch put on his best outfit and set up a sun umbrella. Jeff said it had dreamed last night that all four of them were standing on the Golden Gate Bridge. Finch marveled that Jeff had learned to dream. Jeff was becoming more and more human, and Finch wished he could see what it would be like 5 years from now, but he had a feeling he wouldn't make it. Jeff asked about the postcard story. Finch's father had died before he was born, but when Finch turned 15, he suddenly received this postcard. His father had hoped to see him someday. Yet to this day, Finch had never met his father, an irreparable regret. His biggest wish now was simply to see the Golden Gate Bridge with his own eyes, the place his father had once visited. Jeff immediately said they'd leave now. It would take 18 hours and 33 minutes. Finch calmly told it, "I'm dying." Finch knew he'd leave with regrets, but he was eerily calm. To get the dog to accept Jeff, Finch taught them to play fetch. He threw the ball and the dog eagerly brought it back. When Jeff tried, the dog brought the ball back and placed it in Finch's hand. Jeff was crestfallen. Finch said the dog wasn't used to it yet. The second time, same thing. Finch wanted to say something reassuring, but he coughed up blood, staining his white suit. Jeff tried to carry him back to the RV, but Finch wanted to keep his last shred of dignity. He gave Jeff a tight hug and walked back to the RV alone. The dog crawled in with him and Finch couldn't shoo it away, so he spent his final moments with his dog by his side. Jeff stood in the sunset until darkness fell. It knew Finch was gone. Jeff cremated Finch. The firelight flickered on its face. It wasn't afraid of the cold, but it silently put on a hat. Finch's death hurt it deeply, but at least the dog was still there. The RV felt unbearably empty without Finch. Jeff took out a can of food but couldn't open it. Suddenly, the spot on its chest sucked the can in, spun it around, and popped it open. Finch had designed everything in advance. The dog began to trust Jeff. It brought the ball to Jeff's feet. Jeff threw it and the dog immediately fetched it back over and over. Finch was gone, but Jeff kept heading west. 18 hours later, they reached the Golden Gate Bridge. Jeff buried Finch's ashes beneath the bridge, where green grass was growing vibrant and alive. Jeff and the dog stood on the bridge, their silhouettes bathed in the sunset. Jeff hung a drawing of all four of them on the bridge. Finch had never seen the bridge with his own eyes, but his life would be forever remembered here. In most post-apocalyptic sci-fi movies, everyone fights over resources, kill or be killed. But Finch's wish was heartbreakingly simple: protect his dog. He wasn't just protecting the dog itself, he was protecting the last shred of human decency. For Finch, the true apocalypse wasn't environmental collapse, it was the loss of humanity. Jeff was a gift that humanity left for the post-apocalyptic world. He was a robot, but what we see in him isn't just programming, it's the birth of a soul. Jeff is no longer cold metal. He's the last poem of human civilization. He carries the final wishes of the departed and the breath of the newborn, measuring the weight of hope among the ruins and the auroras. When the little dog places the ball gently at his feet, it's as if the gears of the universe realign. Death isn't the end, it's what forges love into a stronger, more lasting shape. As Jeff disappears into the mist with the dog, they carry not only Finch's last wishes, but also the most precious spark that human civilization has to remember.